Anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to have a Q&A session. So any questions for Santina or Andrew? David had to leave to catch a flight. So.
Thanks for the insight for sharing. Just a quick question. I think what you shared is really, as an auditor myself, I hope to see it being rolled out. But I just want to ask, what's the time frame or the time horizon you think all these that you described would be rolled out in practice and proof for us?
That's a great question, and I might ask Andrew if he has a prediction. I think it's in, there's two pieces to this. I think some of it is happening faster than we think. When I look at where companies are going, auditors are going to be having to catch up. I do think, or being at the same level. I don't have a good answer for you, but I do think it's going faster than we think. There are a lot of companies out there right now that are developing a lot of these AI tools to just address the different things that we've been talking about. You saw recently, I don't know if it was this past week, where PwC made the announcement about their partnership and investment in AI. So I think it's going to happen probably faster than we think, but I don't have a really good prediction for you.
I'll add on. I think it's going to be iterative. I think you're going to see from a year to 5 years from now, major change. But it's not going to happen necessarily all at once. It's going to be little by little, things are starting to utilize AI more and more throughout the audit process. For example, at our firm, we've leveraged an enterprise license to OpenAI, probably not surprising based upon my speech. And my challenge to my team is there's an expense to this. It's not horrible, it's like $20 per person per month. That adds up when you have a big team. And so how can you use this 20 times a day to automate something in your work life? And what we've also enabled through that is our team can build their own models inside this. So we have individuals that have created some highly custom ones that we have a solution. We implement a lot of GRC solutions. So one someone's working on is we use one AI to automatically track when we're creating training guides and say, I clicked here, I clicked here, and it creates a base user guide. That got us about 70% of the way there. We then can take that, drop it into another AI tool that gets us 95% of the way there because it trains us the rest of the way there. We built that utilizing various AI solutions. Now that's not on any technology vendor's roadmap, but we can begin to enable that. All right, now what's that next one we want to go after? So little by little, we start eating away at a lot of these individual manual processes. And then as the technology of AI continues to advance, every new model that comes out, you can do a little bit more. And then as it gets ingrained in more tools, you're going to use it further. So again, I don't know if there's a clear hey, 5 years from now we've hit that nirvana state, but 5 years from now will not look like it did today, or even 1 year, 2 years on from that. So,
yeah. And also just, it's like we don't know yet what other solutions or other things are going to be created out there. So it's been accelerating very, very quickly.
My question is more on kind of regulatory and standard side. So is there any thoughts around making the regulations and standards AI friendly? So, you have a curated service that your AI model or pipeline can actually access, and you're going to get accurate results from it. So probably regulations should be in a vector store, correctly chunked, and so it can be accessed, and then you can see if you've got compliance. Is there any moves on the parts of the regulators to actually start to embrace and make it AI friendly?
I guess if I think about AI friendly, what I will say is that if they I can speak just from a PCAW sort of standard setting, perspective. Certainly, there's been a call for this that is our firms believing that standards are holding back, and you never want to be where a standard is holding you back from innovation and creation of new tools, etc. So certainly they are looking to the experts to learn more about where things are going and how do standards need to is there a need for is the standard holding things back, or do they need to make an adjustment to the standards? I think this one they just introduced is the first step towards recognizing the technology, but what they will say is that technology isn't like the audit procedure, it is the tool you're using. So that's where I kind of go back a bit to the first principles around what is an auditor's goal, like when they're looking at data or you're looking at audit evidence. You want to know that it's reliable and it's relevant. I think that with AI, maybe what's going to be different is that where you used to have a piece of paper that you would be able to use, now you have a prompt and a query and a result. So what you're going to need to look at is you got to understand that model. You got to understand, who had oversight over it. What was the data? How do we know that data that went into that model was valid, reliable, and appropriate? And then did the model process it correctly so that the output came out? So I think there's movement there. It may not be as quick as maybe people would like to see, but there is certainly movement, and we'll see what the results come from that working group that they've been working on as well.
I'm curious, your question, I want to make sure I understand it. Are you asking regulators? Will they standardize how they put out regulations, how laws are drafted, or are you more so focused on PCAOB type standards?
The question was that if I'm developing an AI model,
Yeah, right.
I'm creating an AI model, and I'm, as part of that, power of the AI has the ability to reason.
Yep.
So if you're looking at compliance with regulation,
Gotcha.
you'll want to have that regulation in a vector store that the AI can actually access and use it as part of its context window to reason on a particular aspect of your audit to see, okay, yes, it is in compliance with the regulation. So, and, if you've got all the regulations in a paper store and unstructured Word document, it's up to you to ingest that. But I think that's what I mean about the regulatory bodies actually starting to say, oh, we've actually got to change the way we distribute the regulations to say, okay, if somebody does a query on whatever standard it is, it's going to return the correct answer and put that into the context of the model. That's kind of where I'm
That's what I thought. I'm not expecting regulators to do anything. And let me tell you why. Early on in my career, when I was a law clerk, all the way back in law school, ended up doing tons of what we call 50 circuit reviews, reviewing laws and regulations across all 50 states, federal, regarding any specific topic. Every state did it differently. One regulator did it differently. At least it was online, but it was a lot of work. The advantage of AI, it can handle unstructured data a lot better than we ever could from previous. Like, I need to put this all in an Excel spreadsheet. I need to then load it into a database. So it's up to me to structure that. AI can do a lot of that for us. So I just don't see regulators shifting on that. And what I'll say too is in that space, I'm seeing more vendors, more technology providers starting to utilize AI for that exact use case, at least from review and here's what's changing. The leap they haven't made yet is how do we apply that to our controls and our testing around that. I think within the next year, you're going to start seeing more of that. One of the use cases we're working on is we can have our list of controls as an auditor for any specific topic. And we can use the tool to go out there and ask, provide your evidence. That usually then requires an auditor to review that evidence. We can use AI to review that evidence. And we could also then potentially, to your point, tie that back to the specific regs, the policies, whatever it might be. I know I'm belaboring the point, but I'll say the one spot where what's interesting in this market is court cases are not as readily available. It's public, but you have to pay for it. And so this is where you have specific industries like, or specific companies like a Westlaw or Thomson Reuters and LexisNexis, they have a leg up because they have all that data, they have all that databases. So they have a real easy job of layering AI on top of that, from an AI from an attorney's perspective. So there's always this, how accessible is the data? And those organizations are going to be in a better spot to leverage AI or to sell AI technology solutions.
Yeah, and I think as well, I know we as an organization also are partnering with different organizations that are developing some of these tools. And it's just like what you were talking about, Andrew, because there's also the piece around how do you make sure your audit is meeting the quality controls and the standards, right? You're going to have a regulator that's going to come in. Certainly the PCAW has been reporting that audit deficiencies continue to go up, and they've been concerned about that. And you see some of these things like the nature of deficiencies change certainly over time. And I think that the quality of audits is way better than it used to be. So it's certainly huge improvements. However, when you have this happening, their AI has the benefit to be able to use that tool in order to be able to begin to look and say, how do you build that into how you actually do your audit, so that from an auditor perspective, how are they complying with the standard, right? How are they complying with these different standards in terms of documentation? Is it consistent? You're communicating with an audit committee? Have you communicated everything you're supposed to communicate to the audit committee? Some of these things are very manual processes that then lend themselves to human error. So you can have the benefit of the tool that can really help to begin to identify this. And I think there's different applications that are being developed exactly for that purpose, to be able to address it. So if, do I think a regulator is going to come out with that? Probably not, but I'm imagining they may end up in time using AI as part of what they do too. But you see a lot of this development in terms of the applications currently.
Excellent. So, any other questions? Else, I'm going to move to lunch. Oh, one question. Time for one more question, Peter.
It's actually a part I'm fascinated by, I'm an engineer before I became an accountant, and AI is fascinating. But I also think that AI stands for augmented ignorance. I don't think it's very intelligent. In fact, I think it's dumb as hell. And I'm bothered by what I would describe as the hope that something good is going to come out of it. I don't think there's a hope in hell that anything is good is going to come out of it unless we're very, very careful about our totality of thinking. AI has got potential for bad that is so huge, and I just don't see guardrails around sorting it out, making sure that it doesn't happen. I've got a lot more to say on this, but for another time.
You're responsible.
Santina.
Being bold and responsible, right? And I agree with you. It's where I started, and that's where I think, as accountants and auditors, where the value of what we do as experts that is going to be important in this process is being able to contribute to putting in those guardrails, because obviously, like sort of saying is that there's a lot of opportunity, but with the flip side is exactly what you're saying. And the flip side, you also have the opportunity for, cheating, etc. So it's getting to how do you know that you're dealing with facts, that you have the facts that they're objective.
I'd say, I think the topic you bring up is probably a 10-week conference in and of itself and discussion around it. So I'm not going to be able to answer it fully right now. I think there's very, very legitimate concerns that always need to be there. There's ethics considerations, there's going to be significant displacement, the world is changing with it. And I'd say, I think there's a nice correlation here of AI can't be successful, shouldn't be successful without audit along the way, with ethics along the way, with compliance professionals along the way. Because we can go down paths that we shouldn't be going down, and some will. It will be used for notorious purposes, it already is. But how we manage that, I don't think I have all the answers, but at the same point, it's out of the bag now. And I think it's moving forward, there's no stopping it. So how can we work with it? How can we leverage it? How can we begin to guide it to be as good as possible?
Thank you. So, thank you very much, Santina. So let me tell you what we're going to do next, because this involves all of you, and it's for the next hour. Right? So the good news is you're all sitting at the table. And what we've got is lunch in the next room. But don't go yet. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the next room and bring lunch back into the tables in this room. But each table, except for one, which we need to redistribute, has a moderator. So at the back we've got Dr. Barbara Porter. And Barbara, I'm not sure this is your topic, but it's around sustainability, ESG reporting. Is it working? Are we moving too slowly? That's the lunchtime topic. So Barbara and Kelly will lead that discussion, and at the end of it, when we come back after lunch, we'll have a presentation up here of what the question was, what the response was, and then we'll discuss as a group. The second table is in the middle with David Freeman. I think, David, your topic was key differences between the chartered accountant and the US CPA. Amche, you have a topic which is AI is impacting the accounting profession. How do you see this affecting you now in 5 years' time? Ross, you're on this table. You have a topic, attractiveness of the profession, how to encourage more accounting students. You can change that if you wish. And then Shane, you have our home institutes. How well are they supporting their members overseas? Where could they improve? We have one table that doesn't have that, so what I would like is if people from this table could split up depending which question you liked, split to one of the other 5 tables, and what we can do is we can either break, get lunch, come back, discuss, or you can discuss, break for lunch, come back, discuss. It's up to you. Lunch is available in the other room, and as I say, we've got an hour and then we'll have a plenary session. So feel free in that hour, if you're done with talking, you can go and have a break. So thank you.
Too much, Shorty. Thank you.